Debs, now that we've talked about the three main approaches to counselling in our previous videos, let's compare their similarities and their differences.
That's important.
This will help give you more knowledge and understanding of how we've broken them down in the past. So let's start with the person-centred versus the psychodynamic approach.
Yes, Riz. In our experience, we have found that there are more contrasts between the person-centred and psychodynamic approach than them having similarities.
So for a start, the person-centred approach views human nature as positive and that humans naturally strive towards self-development. And this is known as self-actualization, something that you've already achieved.
Well, thank you, Riz. That's very kind of you to say. Yes, and it focuses on the client's presenting problem, meaning what's currently going on in the client's life in what we call the here and now.
Also, the counsellor considers the client as the expert, and it's the client who knows what hurts.
Yes, that's right, Riz. Because in our experience, it's the clients who knows what's best in finding a way through their concerns.
Yeah, okay. So let's recap the steps, yeah? The person-centred approach values the positive quality of the relationship and believes change occurs when the core conditions of empathy, congruence, and unconditional positive regard are in place.
Yes, that's right, Riz. In this approach, there's no threat of being judged, as this is regarded as destructive to growth and development. It's considered that applying the core conditions is all that's necessary to bring about change, yeah? The client learns to perceive their world from a new perspective and they gain the ability to self-actualise.
So they become like you. Yes, Debs. In other words, they reach their full potential.
So, the psychodynamic approach, by contrast, focuses on negative and aggressive drives of human nature and explores unconscious processes.
Yeah, so in other words, it values exploring early childhood to examine unresolved conflicts with the aim to bring conscious old patterns of behaviour that are being repeated. Something that I always do.
So unlike the person-centred approach, the psychodynamic counsellor does not view the client as an expert on themselves. Instead, the psychodynamic counsellor values their own professional knowledge and expertise. In this model, the counsellor will interpret meaning for the client by allowing themselves to be what's called a blank screen.
Yeah, and that means the client can project onto the counsellor both their repressed negative and positive desires. The client also is able to transfer their unresolved issues into the counsellor, and this phenomena is known as transference.
Transference, yes. Transference is a phenomena that's very interesting to the psychodynamic counsellor. You know, this psychodynamic approach brings insight or awareness through the relationship and through that transference relationship. It reduces the pressure between the id and the superego. Therefore, it's all about strengthening the ego.
Because developing insight means the clients can reality check their situation and they can begin to self-regulate their responses. And in both approaches, they believe that it's the relationship is what brings about change in the client.
That's right. Okay, now let's compare the person-centred approach to CBT, or cognitive behavioural therapy. The person-centred approach views that clients have struggled towards self-actualisation, whereas behavioural therapy sees behaviour as being a learned response.
Okay, so from a cognitive behavioural or CBT perspective, human experience is based upon the idea that the way in which we feel and behave is determined how we perceive and structure our experience. So in other words, depending on what my thoughts are and how I perceive them, this will determine how I feel and then behave or act out.
Yes, yeah. So let's look at the similarities in the person-centred approach and the CBT approach.
Well, these both deal with a conscious mind and what's going on in the client's life, like we said earlier, in the here and now. Both have a positive view of human nature and do not consider the client as a product of their early childhood experiences.
The person-centred and CBT counsellors both create a relationship of safety and trust and regard this as essential to the success of therapy.
Yeah, they do.
They consider the relationship as equal and collaborative, and that the client can determine their own resolve and their future.
Okay. So let's look at these as a working model. Okay. Yeah? So the person-centred approach is a non-directive approach, as it considers that the client knows what's best for them and what direction to go in.
And the CBT approach is educative and goal-orientated. In CBT, the clients are taught skills that are necessary for change to happen. It believes that if the client changes their thinking and adapt their behaviour by conscious disciplines, in other words, self-awareness, it will reduce their emotional angst.
Yeah, that's right. That's because CBT therapists generally work within a time-limited framework, whereas person-centred counselling is open-ended, meaning they can meet weekly with no particular end date agreed.
Okay, let's compare psychodynamic and the CBT approach.
What, you want me to do that?
Yeah, I do. Come on, off you go.
All right, Evie, I will do that for you. The psychodynamic approach links childhood experiences and associated feelings to current life problems. It focuses the client to self-reflect in order to uncover their past and their early childhood. And that brings insight and raises self-awareness.
Well done, Riz.
Happy with that?
I'm happy with that. In similar vein, CBT does this by getting the client to explore their maladaptive schemas and core beliefs that developed in their early childhood. In highlighting the differences between the psychodynamic approach and the CBT, CBT focuses on the here and now, it's goal-orientated, and challenges it how our thinking, beliefs and attitudes affect our feelings and behaviour.
Yeah.
It sees behaviour as being a learned response to negative thoughts processes, and it teaches coping skills to deal with different problems.
Yeah. Whereas psychodynamic approach is experiential. So overall, CBT sees the process of change as being a relatively short-term process, whereas psychodynamic therapy is a long-term process of change.
So, in conclusion, each model has its own strengths and weaknesses, and clients may be drawn to any one of these therapies depending what their concerns are. Yeah. One style of therapy may be more appropriate at any given time.
So, however though, Debs, it must be highlighted that some therapists can offer an integration of all the three core models of person-centred, psychodynamic and CBT. And this is known as integrative psychotherapy or counselling. And that's the way we work, isn't it, Debs?
Yeah.
We are integrative therapeutic counsellors.
We certainly are.